You gotta have a podcast.
You gotta have a podcast. You gotta have a podcast. You gotta have a podcast. You gotta have a podcast. You gotta have a podcast. You gotta have a podcast. You gotta have a podcast. You gotta have a podcast. You gotta have a podcast.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to You Gotta Have a Podcast. I'm Angela Palladino, and I hope you're all having a good week. I mean, I can't believe we're in the middle of February already. It's kind of insane. I'm coming off the other end of a hell month of just like crazy insanity with work. And I'm really excited for things to get a little bit more, not normal is exactly the word because nothing is normal right now, but like a little more chill, I suppose. And also my birthday was yesterday. So that is a thing. I don't know. It's kind of exciting, but also kind of not, because time is a flat circle. But anyway, I am really excited for my guest today. He is a comedian, writer, performer, musician, filmmaker, truly one of the most interesting people I've had the pleasure to get to know through the comedy community in New York City. He's been all over the world, and he chooses to stay here with us. His name is Shem Pennant. Shem and I talk about how sort of scrambling your brain by challenging yourself and learning new skills can boost your creativity in other areas. We also talk about how some alternative art forms are often considered the lowest form of culture at the time they're made, but then as history goes on and you look back, they are considered high art, and it's all because the gatekeepers have changed their mind about how they regard them. And you know what? A bit of a running theme amongst a lot of these interviews, we talk about defining your own personal definition for success because everyone defines it differently. You know, where you derive your joy from is really the key factor. Maybe you should be deriving your joy from the process, not the destination. I gotta tell you, speaking with Shem, especially about these sort of like high concept topics, is always a joy. He's just a wonderful human being with an incredibly interesting and broad range of experiences, and he brings all that to the table when you speak with him or collaborate with him. I loved this conversation, and I hope that you do too. Here is my conversation with Shem Pennant.
In one sense, it was like, oh, I mean, just do the opposite of what whatever I've done, because my career is technically terrible. But then I was listening to, I love podcasts. I think they're great, and partly because they give you like a very personal, like weird, fun connection, and also because you can literally just do them, which is, I think, good. And I had the thought today about how the things that we like ridicule and deride often end up lasting much longer than other things. So like that's the whole journey of pop culture is like, rock and roll, everyone thought that was trash, or hip hop was like just the music of brown people. And then like they've become like huge, like wonderful things that people like write about and like lionize. And that goes all the way back to like in ancient, I'm so sorry, I'm just gonna waffle and like be,
no, go
like,
for it, please. Please waffle.
But like it also reminds me of like I don't know how much this is true, but like in ancient Japan, they had this complex about all the important serious stuff was always like what was done in China. So like all the men would like write all these traditional Chinese poems and like try to like replicate traditional Chinese poetry and literature. Mm-hmm. And that's never going to be as good as traditional Chinese poetry and literature because the Chinese are already like handling that. And then like stuff written in like actual Japanese and like using hiragana was like women's work and like, that's just what let them like do their little thing. It's like meaningless. And then that's the stuff that scholars now look and go, wow, this is amazing. Like the whole, that's why Genji Monogatari is like considered like this amazing, one of the best works of Japanese literature, even though it was like written by like a woman at the time. And like, like the things that people like look down on and think as like not part of like high culture often have like lots of honest and authentic content within them because there's no gatekeepers doing them. It's like the way I like look down on like I hate front facing comedy videos. I think TikTok's dumb, but like I'm so wrong. Like 50 years from now, we'll be looking at all those stupid character videos and TikTok's going, look at this culture. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I also love podcasts. And the thing of everyone has to have a podcast that like I got mad about was I was just like, not everyone has something that's worth saying in a podcast form. And that's why I was so resistant to doing it for so long, because I was just like, I don't want to be derivative. Like, I love true crime comedy podcasts. Like, I love macabre history stuff and like The Dollop and Last Podcast on the Left. But like, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's just not my wheelhouse. Like, I like listening to it and consuming it. But so it took me like being like, oh, this is actually something I like would like to have some conversations about, to be like justify to myself, like, oh, okay, now I will do what you tell me to do. But it is funny, like, I am also sort of that snobbish person when it comes to like front-facing comedy videos. And it took me, I don't even know if I've fully even admitted that I'm wrong yet, but or maybe I'm just mad that I didn't start doing them in 2015 and I don't have a Netflix special now, you know?
I have like, so I think that it's okay to like hold contradictions or like have like warring ideas in your head. Like, I know that there's all these things that I know if I did them, I'd do a lot better on like social media, but like, because I don't want to do them, I'm not going to do them, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then the another podcast I was listening to by the School of Motion had this wonderful director, Kat Solon, I think her name is, and she directs The Shivering Truth. And she said, which is something I was thinking about with my comment at the top of this, I don't consider myself like a success.
Uh-huh.
That's like nonsense, because partly capitalism makes you think that you need to be earning money or like doing a certain amount of like work to be like, oh, now I'm a comedian because like I earn like $40,000 a year just from comedy. And like that's not the case. Like, if you're funny and like creating joy, then you are like a comedian, and in a long history of people doing that. So yeah, like that really changed or flips the way I think about what I do, how good what I do is, or what I do to like gauge the success of what I do.
Yeah.
So I've stopped like being, 20 people looked at this. Yeah, like things like that have been like really helpful in terms of my thought process and like my general happiness as well.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's kind of cliche to say, but like success is, you have to like figure out what your definition is. Like, I think more recently I've been thinking like, for me, it's like, can I, you know, by the big like amalgamation of all the little jobs that I do, comedy, writing, performing, directing, film stuff, like I do a bunch of random shit, and then somewhere in there I make enough money to just like survive, and I'm generally happy, and I'm making stuff that I think is exciting. That to me is success. But some people, it's like they're not successful until they have like a Comedy Central special or something like that. I mean, I think it kind of all, it's fucking relative, man.
And then I think so one of the things that I found helpful is having successful friends. Like, that really helped me, because having both friends who have the things I want and also me having the things I want, and then knowing that getting them has not like fundamentally changed like why I'm happy. Like, if I could go back like 10 years in time and say, yeah, you do all this stuff, you'd be like, oh wow, then you must be like the happiest person in the world. Like, no, I'm still pretty sad. So like my friend was in Star Wars, not that happy. My other friends, like, I have like friends who are like on HBO shows, like doing really well. Like, they got like all these jobs, and it's like it hasn't like fundamentally changed them as like people. Even though when they're doing like their dream jobs, they're still like jobs. And that was like, I've always wanted to like write for the BBC and like write like radio comedy for them. That was like an early dream I had. And then one day I got to like do it, and like it was like really cool, and I got to like sit around and type. And then some guy like worked there full time. He showed me his like desk, his like station, and it was like this sad little cubicle with like a CRT like type monitor and an old grey keyboard. And he just hunched over there like writing little witty puns for the news quiz. And like, yeah, this is where I sit and like do stuff. And it's like, oh, like that shouldn't be my dream. Like, I shouldn't, like, I love doing it, and it's like fun, and like I am grateful every opportunity I get to create, but I shouldn't like be making myself unhappy for like 20 years just so I can like hunch over this little cubicle and like type things. Like,
you like, it does take like that moment of like noticing that like the grass isn't always greener. I mean, I think Amy Poehler has a quote in her book that I've kind of always like remembered ever since I read it a couple years ago. But it's just about, I'm going to paraphrase, but she's like talking about like, once you get the thing, there's always a next thing. So like, you're never really, if all you're striving after is like the titles and the roles and like, oh, I am this, like I write for an HBO show or whatever it is, there's always, once you get there, you're always going to want the next step up. So it's like, basically like you'll never be happy if that's how you're defining success.
So like I wear like a dumb little watch that has like it has like now on it
cool.
for the time. Which I got from the Time Travel Mart in LA. But like I have that on me at all times to kind of remind myself to like enjoy what is happening. And then that's like very airy fairy and dumb, but like it's also like a real thing that like genuinely helps me. So in the so I've done so many like stand-up shows or like performances where there's like almost no one there, or like I remember emceeing a show in London like years ago and then like 2 people were there, but they paid like $20 or something like that they paid like actual money to see a comedy show, and there were just 2 of them in the audience. And then part of me is like, oh, can you believe there's only 2 people there? But another part of me is like, well, these 2 people, like it's still my job to like entertain them and give them like a great show. And then like I did, like they had the night of their lives. They were like catered to, they're entertained. There was like crowd work. I told like some like that was one of the most defining shows I've had in my career, because it was like a real like the job isn't to like be famous and successful or whatever. The job is to like entertain the people who want to be entertained by you. And then the now thing on my watch is like just whoever's like enjoying my content right now, that's great. Like if I make the one person I'm with laugh, or if like 20 people like a video, or like your life isn't any different. Like I know some people who've gone viral, they don't walk around on like a cloud of joy like nonstop. It's just like their phone blew up a little bit and then they went back to like normal. Like and then the wild thing is no one believes me. Like if I heard me saying this like a year ago, like now, or like some other version of me is like, yeah, but like actually if you have the thing, and it's like it's not true. Like it doesn't make anyone any happier. Like you're not getting anything special. But it's hard to believe that. Yeah,
you don't believe it till you experience it. I mean, I believe you. Listen, I do, because I mean, I've had this like thing actually that even this year I've been like extremely on Twitter in 2020, because like that's where I fucking live now, not in the real world, but on Twitter, unfortunately. And I don't have that many followers. I have like 2,000 followers, which is like just a few more people than I know in real life. And I've tweeted things that then like some other famous account, you know, not famous, but like someone with like 50,000 followers will tweet almost the exact same joke. Not that they stole it or anything, probably just duplicate thinking, but that joke will then go viral. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's not because my content is bad. It's just because I don't have a gigantic reach. Like, you know.
But for me, the joy in that is like, oh, I'm doing good content. Like my work is good. And that should be. Yeah. Because like, yeah, like I remember I have the exact same. I used to have a joke about romantic a love triangle and how it's not really a love triangle, and that's because like it shouldn't be like person A, person B, and person C. If they're both just in love with person B, that's like a love V, or like a love like 10. Like it's also they all 3 of them have to be equally in love with each other for that to work as like a love triangle. And then Dimitri Martin, I remember went to see him in Shepherd's Bush Empire. He told the exact same joke with the exact same complicated setup and line of thought, and it was like, oh, I can never tell that joke again. But also like I'm thinking like I want to be able to write a joke that good, and okay, I'll just keep writing. Like at least I know like my dream was to be funny, and like, well done, you made it. You're like funny. So like, just be happy that you're funny. Like most people aren't funny. Like sure, loads of people can like get acclaim or whatever, but like just that skill of being funny is like so important. Same as like being able to play the piano or like kick a ball or whatever it is that you want to do. If you've like achieved that skill, there's so much like joy to be had in being able to do that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm the same way. I like think of those moments of like you seeing Dimitri Martin do your joke as like, okay, great, I'm on the right track. I mean, similarly, I've written 2 spec scripts I wrote one Broad City spec script and then one Kimmy Schmidt spec script. These are years ago. That then they did the storyline that I did in my spec. And I was like, well, at least I know where their writer's room was going. Like, it sucks that I have to throw out my spec, but I think it's like encouraging, sort of. I mean, but I'm also not one to like, I tend to be very chip on my shouldery about like people telling me that if I don't do this, I, am not a comedian or I'm not a filmmaker or whatever it is, because I'm just kind of like, you don't know me. Do you feel that way about like certain things?
I've realized, no one really knows anything, and it's all like just a big old guess. I try not to get too stressed about that. Everyone's just saying stuff that's like the best guess, but you truly don't. Like, the biggest video this year was just some man on a skateboard. So like no one, no management, no agent is like going to tell you that's going to happen. Yeah. They won't be able to like replicate that. Sometimes things just happen. It's all very uncontrollable. Mm-hmm. So if you're like so whatever someone tells me, I'm always like aware that there's like huge caveats attached, and like just the limits of people's knowledge and their absolutes is like at the forefront of my mind when I'm talking to people, I guess. Yeah,
it's interesting too. Like, I don't know. For example, like this podcast, right? Like the reason that this is sort of happening is I was so resistant to having a podcast for so many years. But then this year, when all video shut down because of the pandemic for a while, I was like, shit, I'm going to apply for podcast producer jobs. But then I was like, I need to have a work sample. And then I was like, well, also I like have been so resistant to wanting to do a podcast for so many years. Why would I want to apply for a podcast producer job? It was just like this whole like weird thing that like now I'm here and I'm really excited about this idea. But I never thought I would end up here, and especially not in this way. And like I think that I think back on, there's a lot of projects in my career that like I've kind of amalgamated in that way. Like do you find that like you start off on one path and then it turns into something like wildly different?
I started out writing jokes for radio. I had like a sketch show that was going to be like run on BBC, like Radio 4, which is like a huge deal. Yeah. Not money wise, but like that's just like childhood dream. So like it was going to be on the radio. I was really excited, and it got cancelled. Because like the channel had just changed. That just got cancelled, and I was like, oh no, what do I do now? And that meant I had all these like jokes and things I'd written. I was like so sad. Like I just cycled to an open mic, took all the jokes I had on like pieces of paper, just read them out. That ended up in me like I became a stand-up comedian, like just unexpectedly, which like comedy is like hard and horrible. But like it was like, oh, I'm just doing this thing I didn't expect. I got like bummed out by doing that, and then ended up listening to like a bunch of like podcasts about comedy. People just kept mentioning this place called UCB. I heard about it, and I was like I watched this special on Netflix. I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. Ended up moving to New York to like hang out there and do shows there and do things like that. And then I ended up like doing that, which I didn't expect. And that meant I live here now. Like I upended my entire life. I met all these like people. I'm talking to you because of like that weird confluence of events where like all these things didn't happen or kept on saying, like almost every job I've got is not directly the thing I was trying to do, but like just accidentally I did a thing, or I met a person doing this other thing which I didn't really want to do, and like whatever, like, and just all these weird accidents happen, and then suddenly I end up like in this position where I'm almost like doing this thing or like working in this job I wouldn't expect. So like, life is unknown, and I've just decided to like embrace that.
Yeah, it's like a little bit like a rafting trip. You just got to like hold on and like you go around like the bends in the river or like down the rapids or whatever. But like if you try to steer the like whitewater raft too much, you're just going to fall over. It is kind of crazy. Like I think like if you try to have too much control, it can often lead to like you just getting really frustrated and burnt out, versus like if you just kind of like hold on for dear life and go wherever it takes you. Especially like this year, like you just gotta fucking hold on. I mean, is there any like bits of advice that were like those kind of standard classic things that people tell you like you gotta do? Like for example, like you know, I think when everyone starts doing improv, especially in like a UCB sort of system, they might be like, well, all right, I'm going to start an indie team and then we're going to practice twice a week and we're going to do this many shows. Were you that like regimented or did you just kind of go with it?
Yeah. So like stuff like that, it was always more, so I came like in New York comedy, I was just so, it took me years to get here. Like I was been trying to like get here and it's really hard to get like a visa and like to move across and like it's literally upending a whole life and moving it across to like do that. So by the time I landed, I was like, I am so grateful that I get to do this. This is so exciting. Wow. I'm doing a show at the Triple Crown. I'm hanging out in like I'm doing all this nonsense that everyone here like just takes for granted. I'm like, wow, I'm on an indie team. Like so like the people I'm on, like I was on my first indie team. I text them this morning. We're like still very good friends. And we do stuff together like still. And like, so for me, it was less like do all these steps and more just like enjoy the ride and like, find like fun in whatever we're doing. So like I've done so many like empty shows at like, places like the Pit Loft that sucked. And like, oh, this is objectively very bad, but that's still, but I'm still like, this is part of me, like living my dream and like doing the comedy I want to do. So I'm going to like do the best I can do in the show, enjoy it, like try and make it a good show, like put like literally leave nothing on the table in terms of like that. And like, that is like helping me grow as like a comedian and performer. Like that. So like that was my focus. So it's not more like doing the steps rather than like every juncture of the way I am doing the best I can to like, you know, enjoy things. And then wildly like, so that was my process is like, I'm going to enjoy the people I'm with and enjoy what I'm doing. And then try my hardest to like, just be good and like be around. And then I weirdly had I know everyone has like a very fractious relationship with UCB. I had like an amazingly good time. Like I got treated very well and I shot up really quickly without trying too hard. Like I did none of the things you're supposed to do, and then I performed there like 3 times a week without even like I wasn't even on like a regular improv team. But I got to like just asked to do a bunch of shows with people. I got like asked to like do about sketches and write and perform just from like being around. Like, and this isn't the case for everybody, but I was around. I was like nice to a bunch of people, and I was like talented and like funny, and everyone's like, "Oh, we see your value in that." But even that, the benefit of that doesn't matter. Like if you didn't get that, treat doesn't matter, because all that was like I'm just creating some content or having some fun with my friends, and that felt the same, literally the same, doing it when I was like performing in like a weird little bar or like in the weird show or like on stage with like a bunch of people. Like it's still the same, bringing the same energy and the same attitude to it, but which is why I mentioned it. Like it wasn't like, oh, I finally fucking made it. Like it was just the same like path the whole time. Like, and like truly all that went away like very quickly. And then you're back into the same place of like, just, I'm giving you as much comedic energy right now in my basement or like focus or like joy. Like this feels the same to me as it would like if we were on stage doing this or like this was like the biggest podcast and what, it doesn't matter. Like it's just, I don't know, like just enjoy what you do. I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. I mean, I remember when you first showed up in New York, at least when I first met you, because all of a sudden I didn't know who you were. And then like, within a week I had like met you 3 times and was like, okay, so there's this new guy named Shem who's around. I think we were in like a DCM workshop together or something, or maybe like a jam. I don't know. But I mean, I think it sounds like you were just like, you had worked so hard to get over here that then you were like, why would I waste any time at this point? I'm just going to like hang out and experience it and really take in everything there is to do. Like as far as like doing all the shows and, you know, just hanging out with people and creating shit that you wanted to do.
Yeah. I mean, and they also like, by the time I got here, I'd like literally traveled the world, like performing and teaching improv and like doing like comedy, like at like various levels. So it's like, this is all just like, and like, this is all just supposed to be like fun. Like, it's like something you take very seriously and like there's craft and passion attached to it, but it's also, it's not that serious. It doesn't matter. Like, it's just like a joyful, this moment is like fun. Who would have thought I'd end up in Finland with a bunch of French clowns, talking about mime techniques. That moment in itself is like beautiful and cool. It's like, just enjoy that moment. I am friends with like so many like 25-year-old bisexuals. And I shouldn't be. Like I'm a weird old man. Like half my friend group is like so interesting and like weird, and it's like just revel in that joy. Like who else gets to like do that or know that? And like and whatever specifics I give, that's true for whoever you are listening. Like you have all these like things in your life that shouldn't happen or are like so odd and wonderful and like joyful, and like it's just focusing on that, what's happening now, and like taking joy in that rather than what could be, has been like a real help.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like focusing on the joy and like seeking the joy in things, I think is a way better motivator than like beating yourself up over the fact that you've like haven't done this yet or haven't done that yet or whatever it might be. Also, every time you drop a new tidbit of like your life and your experiences, like French clowns in Sweden, and I'm just like, what is your life? It's like it is very. I love when you just like plop a little like nugget of like something you've done into conversation. I'm just like, what?
I just spend a lot of time saying yes to things, or like being. So like the bit of advice I would say that I do think helps or has helped me, and like, you know, who knows how much that applies, is to be joyful and to be curious. So like I'm always like, oh, I wonder what that experience would be like, or that would be like fun, or like this weird thing I did, which was like I did like an improv festival in Finland, and that was like so fun and weird. And I met all these like fun, interesting people who were like, oh, you're very, very cool. And then that spiraled out to the point where like I met all these people from all around the world and have these different friends who like have these different perspectives. And then that, like I'm teaching and performing in like a international improv festival like this afternoon, like cool. Via Zoom. But that's from that same like decision to go, oh, I just wonder what this will be like. So like that joyful curiosity can like really help.
Yeah. Do you find that like not just with experiences that you have that, or do you also have that sort of like joyful, curious perspective when it comes to like, you have so many different skill sets, like obviously writing, film production, music, like is that like also kind of drive your like you seem like a lifelong learner in that way? Does that the same curiosity bug like drive that?
Yeah, it's just like fun to like do stuff and like try stuff and like to have like try things anew, and like it stops you feeling. It's very easy to feel like you know things, and like you really don't. Like that's very clear. And even the things I do know, like I have a tenuous grasp of them at best, and like I don't. Yeah. So like trying like new things is like really exciting, and it gives you an approach that you can then like take back into your work, which I find like cool. Even like sometimes like I can write sketch. I've been writing sketch for like, you know, most of my life. So like I know how to like write a sketch. But then when I'm about to write a sketch, sometimes when I like feel like, oh, I know what I'm doing, I'll like go try something I can't do, or like go like, I'm terrible at playing the trumpet. I can barely get a note out. So like I have like a little trumpet I like try to play, or I'll like try and look at something in like a language I don't really speak. And it just like scrambles my brain in like a way of like, oh, like, and that fresh perspective can stop you like writing the same like content over and over again, or telling the same joke over and over again. That like, it just really helps to like enliven your brain to like new things. And like so I come in contact with a lot of sketch. I read a lot of sketch. I direct some. And like, I can tell when someone is like sort of going through the motions of like, this is what I think a sketch should be. This is how I think their perspective is. And like, they've never really like challenged themselves or like interrogated them. So the things on the page are just there, you know, just because, and like one follows the other, follows the other, follows the other. And like, it's sometimes really interesting to like just give them like a slight note of like, why is this here? Or what does this like really mean to you, or whatever. And like, making them fight for it like really like opens up those bits of their brain where they're like, oh no, this is like a much more exciting and joyful way of like approaching this idea or this topic. And then I'm not left like reading heavy-handed satire or like other things that like, you know, the world doesn't need. So yeah, like I find it helps.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting that you mentioned that, because we've worked together on some sketch stuff before. And one, you are like so great in a writer's room because you're so good at like kind of asking those like little nudgy questions. I mean, I personally found that because I find myself as a writer who often gets bogged down, especially having written comedy before and then like doing UCB classes and being like, oh, I was doing it wrong the whole time. I have to do this way. I got all jumbled in the brain about like there's a certain set of rules that you need to follow when really, you know, it's a little bit like more loose than that, like break the rules, bend the rules, go around them. And then I found myself for a really long time having my sketches be like really sort of like, I hated them. I was like, these are not funny. These are boring. I'm following these like steps that I don't agree with, and there's no joy in this. And I think everyone can tell. And then it took like kind of burning down that mentality in my mind. I'm still working on that to like get back to like actual, like what I found joyful in my writing.
Yeah, I could speak about that for like forever. And I think like part of that is like, because like no one at any like sketch school will tell you this is the only way to like write sketch, or like this is how it should be. But then sometimes placing it within that like school framework even just puts people in that like headset or like mind space. And I think that's really interesting because like any sketch teacher will say, blah, blah, these are the rules of sketch. You should do this, do that. Unless it's funny. Like, and then like, there's always that magical caveat of like, yeah, if you've just come with something that's very funny, then I guess you just have to put it in. And I worked with Heather Van Campbell, the funniest person I know. Rebecca Drysdale, like combined, like just phenomenal. But like Heather's has this really mathematical approach to like sketch, and like the way she like formulates ideas and like content and the idea generation. It's like so good. And then even she would be like, yeah, but unless it's funny, like just sometimes things are just funny, and like that's okay. And like I like went up to UCB, did like about like sketch stuff there. And I'm on like a team at like UCB, and so we like meet all the time. We literally never want to talk about game. Like all the time I've been like the writers from there, never brought up my pitches, never have any like clear game to them. It's just not discussed. It's just this idea is funny. How do we make it funnier and like play around with all the like fun things in it? Because there's like an understanding there, like, oh, there's like some mechanics like sketch or like things that you can work with, but like it's just, I find this very funny, and this is what drives it. And then the only technical stuff we do is, or I found like really helpful, is I'm very me. Like I think I started talking about like a 12th century Japanese literature example. So like that's not put on like I'm like this all the time. But there's like the only thing that I would say. So like, just to pull back, like, so I like esoteric things sometimes and like fun references and like things that I think I personally enjoy. And then sometimes, but like the thing I enjoyed when I spoke to Heather Van Campbell or worked with her was that she said like, your job is to like entertain people, like people like going out in the world, working a real job, like like doing like stuff, they come to be entertained. So you can keep your like esoteric perspective or whatever it is that you find new, but you just have to like translate or like make sure the other people like get why you think this is funny or interesting, or like just connect with them on some level, and then you can do whatever you want. And like that one note saved me from like disappearing up my own asshole and writing lots of weird sketches that like because like and then I say all this because like I get a lot of like terrible, I'm a like nerdy man. I get like lots of terrible nerdy men who'll come up to me after like shows and go, oh, it's really cool, you did like this references thing that those normal people out there don't get, and that was like really cool, and like no one laughed but I knew. And I was like, no, I wanted people to laugh. Like the job is like, I make comedy so people laugh. The job is to like get them to like connect with the thing that you're saying. Like that, like, so I did like a whole sketch about the surrealist Dada movement and like Dali and like all his like people around there, and that's on paper very intellectual and stupid, but like I made like a point to make sure that it connected with like the internal struggle that artists feel to like they want people to like their work, and like it was like a fun time. I did like a sketch about the culture and politics and like whether or not you should like say the R one or you shouldn't, but I did it through the medium of like the Black Eyed Peas and people like jumping around in like silly costumes and being silly, and there's like, oh, just like make sure people like let people get on the bus, like slow it down, let them like, get on, put down a little accessibility ramp, and then once they're on the bus, you can drive as fast as you want and you can like take whatever route you need to, but like just like those like little steps. This was long and rambling, and like very in the weeds about sketch, but hopefully explains a little bit what I'm thinking, or like, yeah, like that, just connecting with people, I think is so important.
I love that though. That idea, I'm going to remember that. Geez, the idea of like, just slow down enough for people to get on the bus and then you could take them wherever you want. I mean, straight to Crazy Town or wherever the fuck you want to go. Because I think a lot of times, like, not to extend the metaphor to a place where it just gets too muddled, but like, at least I find myself like just being like, oh, well, I have to drive the bus just at like 20 miles an hour the whole time, and no one will get on the bus unless I like drive it so safely and so like I've been challenging myself a lot more recently to be like kind of just like like shit that is so stupid that makes me laugh. Like, not to be dumber, but like I just find like I was trying to be too smart or too stiff for a long time, especially with sketch. Less so with my stand-up or like long-form writing. But I think it's just interesting how we get bogged down in those sort of things. Like, how it can push you.
So the example that like really blew my mind was like Chris Rock has this thing that's, you know, someone driving a truck should be able to understand your comedy. Otherwise, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. And then he did this joke about bullet control on Bring the Pain, where he said, like, I don't believe in gun control, I believe in bullet control. I believe every bullet should cost $5,000. That way there'd be no more innocent bystanders. Mm-hmm. Blah, 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 blah. It's very funny, very good joke. He's Chris Rock. But what that joke is, my version of that joke, looking at it, be like, oh, wow, that's a really interesting example of the positive and negative externalities theory of economics, where you talk about the repercussions and the law of unintended consequences, blah, 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 and that no one understands it, no one gets it. It's the same smart observation, mm-hmm. but like you've lost everyone and everyone's like, when's the next act on? And he's like, no, let me get you on board, and then I'm going to hit all the same beats, do all the same like jokes and ideas, but in a way that's like really accessible. And like is it smarter to, you know, say a weird thing that no one understands mm-hmm. or phrase it and frame it in a way that everyone can like then understand? Like that's not just like intellectual intelligence, but like emotional intelligence, and like developing my, I read books all day and I'm very cold. So like developing emotional intelligence has been like such a big learning opportunity. And like, that's like so fun. And like, oh great, you get to like grow and like learn in other ways and like learn why. Yeah. Like that's been like really cool.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it is really interesting because like so much of like when I, for example, would like watch like a show for like The Foundation or something, it is knowing you and knowing your sensibilities, or not just with you, with like so many people that like, you can immediately be like, oh, Shem wrote that sketch. That's a Shem sketch. Usually, sometimes because there's a really silly pun right up top. but and I think that's really you know, admirable that like so much of your perspective on the world and your personality can translate to your work. You know, I'm specifically talking about sketch, but a lot of your other work too, in such different ways. But it always kind of like has that sort of hallmark of like, it came from your perspective. And I think that is like something that a lot of people strive for, but don't necessarily like achieve, or I don't even know if you're even know that it's happening. It's just natural, but it's really cool to see like it in action. Like I can often identify your work when, you know, it might be a group project. I'm like, that's a Shem pitch.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, like it sort of boils back down to like, why are you doing this? Like the job, like,
yeah.
Because like if you want money, do any other job. There are so many more stable. Like if you truly found out how much like just someone, you know, doing like a regular office job earned compared to like doing comedy, like so many of my like comedy famous friends earn like almost no money. Mm-hmm. Like go away to a course on like, you know, After Effects, and you can like triple your earnings on like writing. So like it's not for like money, and then it's not for like fame even, because like, you know, what even is that? And like so many people get unrecognized or like unknown. Mm-hmm. So like just really, I went back and found like I've been like doing some like digital cleaning. I found like a bunch of old sketches I wrote, still make me laugh. So like, oh, I get it. That was, I see that was funny. That was amusing to me. And like then that's a win. Like you're like doing work that, I sound like a broken record, but you're doing work that like brings joy and like it just tickles you, and you're sharing that. Like the first joke I ever wrote was I'm working on the shortened version of an Arthur Miller play. It's called A View from, and then in brackets, abridged, and like that. That's so dumb and not relatable, but like still makes me laugh. And like that's just who I am. And like if you're putting yourself in there, it's like a little. Even if you change as a person, like you can still like go back and look at like remember the person you were and all those little joys and moments. Whereas like when it's soulless, like for hire work, like when I go back and like read my packets for Ellen or whatever, that's like there's no joy in that. Like that's just this is a bunch of like.
He's like, oh, here's another joke basket. Like I hate that. Yeah, I mean, I think that's great, and I also like so like I wanted to talk about like. You guys are doing a podcast now with Trash, right? And I just know Trash having had so many iterations and so many different like things that you guys have done. And when I like remember seeing you do sets as just, you know, an indie improv team on someone's show to your own show, like the Hot Goss show that you hosted at St. Mark's, or now your podcast when I've listened to episodes, it's just always like the same like joy and vibe. I mean, I guess probably because it's the same people, but I always find it interesting how like it is so translatable and like, and one of those things that's like, I don't know, it just got that kind of stamp on it like we were talking about. Like, are you doing that intentionally, or is that just like the nature of it?
I think we all have the same idea. Like, so it's just we enjoy doing the thing we're doing with each other, and like it's just a thing. Like we don't care if like so we've done like shows under St. Mark's where we like sell out, we get like great guests, like loads of people come, that's very cool. And we've done shows where like just very few people are there, but it's still like or if I'm rehearsing, or if I'm on the podcast, or if I'm just chatting, if I'm doing a scene with Chloe, you know, they have a limited range of what they can play. So do I. So we're not fooling anyone with like our character work. I'm just having a fun like play around with my friend, and they're fantastic. Or same with Rachel, same with Lindsay, like or Eric. We're just like interacting with each other, and like we enjoy each other's company in whatever we're creating. It's like and like that's so like being on a team with like people you hate, like why would you do that to yourself? It's like just it's the same way you were describing your like sketches earlier, where the ones you didn't like was like I don't enjoy this, there's no joy in that, I'm just I feel like I have to do it. Doing things because you have to is miserable, is and that's not fun. Whereas, and this is like an old Becky Drysdale note, was it's not that you have to do it, it's that you get to do it. Like it should be like a joy that you are able to like be silly and like playful and fun with like the people you're around. And she gives this amazing example with like she's like walking around the room like doing some like sort of dumb like scene where she's pretending to be a dog, and then she goes, can you believe we're doing this? And then she like suddenly smiles and walks around and does the same scene as a dog and plays that and say, can you believe we're doing this? And like she's just radiates joy, and then you just remember, oh yeah, that's why we do this. It's like fun. You're like spontaneously creating art and like putting it out into the world, and like whatever form of art you're doing, like even if it's like a bad like stand-up set or whatever, like you're getting to do it, and it's great, and it can be great. And there's obvious caveats when things are like terrible. I'm not Pollyanna-ish. Like I understand the world is like, I understand context, but like there are moments and times when there is like a true joy in the ability to like do things. And that's something like any episode, I record the Trash, or anytime I get to like hang out with them, it's like, oh, this is just fun that I get to do this with my friends. And like, if anyone else shows up, great. But like when you're just hanging out with your friends or like doing stuff with your friends, there's no like stakes or like pressure attached to it. It's just a conversation or a moment. So like, yeah.
Oh, I love Becky Drysdale. I remember I did a workshop with her right when Key and Peele ended and she came back to New York, and she kind of had that sentiment. Were you in that workshop? No. maybe not. But she had that sentiment, and she was like, I'm teaching an independent improv workshop, even though I was just head writer for Key and Peele for a couple years. But like, I love doing this, so I'm going to keep doing it. And I was like, cool. And I've been wondering too, like with you, like, is there ever been, like, we all have to do things we don't want to do. For example, writing terrible packets for Ellen. But like, has there ever been like, something that you had to do that you were kind of like, ugh, about it at first, but then it ended up like actually being really joyful for you and you thought it maybe wouldn't be? Like as far as like comedy and artistic work?
Oh, like that's almost every project I do. Like I don't want to do things like I'm busy. I have a full life and I'm very tired and very old. So like even like this podcast is like, I have to like go and like go there in the middle of a work day, blah, 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 blah. But like literally the moment like I saw your face, it's like, oh yeah, this is fun. This is great. Like I love it. Like, literally everything, there's always like friction to like change. Mm-hmm. Like doing things. So that's an unhelpful example of like every single thing I do. I'm like a little bit, oh boy, can you believe I'm doing this? But like the last thing I did was a video for Tiffany.
I saw that yesterday. The chapstick. Tiffany and Alex and Utkarsh.
Yeah, and they're all like very fun people and great. But I think the morning of it, I like was lugging a bunch of camera equipment across Brooklyn like by hand, and then like climbing up all these steps, like get there and like wondering like it's like, oh, this is like, why am I doing this? And then it made a bunch of people happy and they like it, and like even. I gave like a couple of like notes in the middle of it, and then you could like see like people like go, oh yes, this is great, this is fun, and like really exciting. And then I think the moment I suggested like a camera angle to Tiffany and then showed her on like the monitor, the playback, and then the delight in her face when she like saw her weird little idea like come to life in a way, and it's like, oh yeah, that's why I do it. Like this is like fun. Like not to say like I hugely resented that project, but it's more like, oh, like I have to do all this work.
Yeah, there's been so many like sketch shoots or early morning rehearsals or late night rehearsals that I've been like, why did I do this to myself? But then as soon as I get there, I'm like, okay, I love this. I mean, how else, like, I think we can start to wrap things up because I don't want to take too much of your time. But this has been a really wonderful conversation. And also it's so lovely to catch up with you and like talk about art and work and comedy and joy. Like how are you like transitioning like some of the, like we're just doing things differently now. Like I know you're doing a lot more audio based stuff that I've seen, but like what else, like are there any ways that you're sort of transitioning, if that makes sense, like because we can't do certain things like stage shows right now?
Yeah, it's like I'm doing a lot of more like recorded content, which is like fun. Mm-hmm. I'm learning like, I literally have Cinema 4D open just there. Like I'm learning how to like make a bunch of stuff and that, which is cool. And like experimenting with like techniques and painting and drawing and like, just like you're like, I believe that everyone is, like I think you're so malleable as like an artist. Like you're not, if you take away, I don't give like a bad example. It doesn't matter. Like if you take away an artist's pencil, they don't stop becoming an artist. They just like paint with something else, or like they see, it's not what you do, it's how you see and process the world and information. Mm-hmm. Like that's the joy of like comedy is like and like just finding different like ways to process that joy and information and like that angle and perspective and like push it out is like really cool. Mm-hmm. So like I've been using this moment as an opportunity to like explore that and to like see what works for me and what's like exciting. So like maybe it's like weird, like I won an award to like make a cartoon. Like can't draw. It's like but then I like was able to like,
I saw that. Congratulations on that.
and like literally all that money just went to be able to pay people. But even that was like very good to be able to like give people money for like working in the sketch. Like, oh my God, like that, what a dream. Like truly that felt like unheard of. And like just little things like that where you can like explore and like develop have been like really cool. So like I'm just always looking for ways to do things, looking forward rather than bemoaning that I can't do like 10:30 p.m. Wet shows in the dark at Hell's Kitchen or whatever, like, you know, and those were fun, but like, can't do it at the moment. So I'll just do something else. Even like sleep, even like getting like good sleep and looking after my body has been like a wonderful, like new project I'm working on.
I mean, that is, you know, one of the benefits of all this is that at least we don't have any midnight texts at the moment. Yeah, I mean, I am totally on that same sort of mindset, like that you were just, you know, mentioning. Like, I was just like, you know what? It's a bummer. I'll miss, like, right now, I miss not being able to get on stage, but also, like, I've had so much time to, like, I've gotten so much better at editing audio and, like, learning about podcast production, for example, with this project, or like lots of other things. Like, I've been working on a bunch of other stuff too. And it's just, I don't know. I think this conversation has been not surprisingly, but incredibly optimistic. And I think that is a testament to like your joyful approach to like all your work. Is there anything that you have like on the table right now that you're really excited about to be working on, or anything coming up?
I've started producing a podcast called Steve Genty's Infinite Playlist with my friend who's like very talented, Steve Genty, and he's very talented, but also like very, oh fuck it, I don't want to do this, or like this is bad, or like I can't like do this type thing. So like even like gently nudging him into like doing things like this is how you set things up, or like doing the records and scheduling things, like getting that like up and running has been like really great and like really fulfilling, because it's like, oh, like do you see when it works, how like getting all that love and like response from people has been like really great, and like you should work with this person and talk to this person and do all these kinds of things. So like that's been like a thing where like I say no words of comedy on that show, but I'm very like I produce it, like I make it like happen, and like I'm very like, but I get like just as much satisfaction about watching that like grow and flourish. So that that project, I guess, is like the thing I'm like excited about.
Yeah, that's great. I listened to the first episode with Steph Leshek the other day, and it's great. And I'm actually speaking with Steve for this podcast. So that's awesome. I'm really excited to see like what you guys continue to do with that show. All right, well, thank you so much for chatting with me. And I really can't wait till we get to work together again soon, I hope. You know, whenever that might be.
or even just talk.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. I've been a bit of a hermit. I've seen like 5 people. Although that one time that I was at Fulton Grand and you walked by me and I tried to say hello and you did not.
I had my chance and I blew it.
Yeah, that's the only chance. All right. Thank you to Shem for joining me on the podcast, even though you walked right by me on the sidewalk in front of Fulton Grand. I'll never forgive you. Just kidding. And thank you all for listening to this episode. This episode is episode 5 of You Gotta Have a Podcast, if you can believe it, which means that we are halfway through our 10-episode season 1. So next week, we'll be taking a bit of a break, but we'll be back on the first Tuesday of March with another conversation. I'm Angela Palladino. This has been You Gotta Have a Podcast, and we'll see you then. Or, well, you'll hear me then. All right, bye!